One of Australia's richest men, and his latest is Titanic Two, to be precise.
Meet Clive Palmer, one of Australia's wealthiest and most outspoken men.
Why is it eccentric to take up the challenge?
Whose passion for grand ideas surpasses even his considerable wealth. His latest venture, Titanic Two. As whispers circulate about Titanic Two, a replica of the original, we find ourselves with one question. Will this bold project navigate the currents of skepticism to set sail in 2024? Or will it remain a wistful dream? Join this exploration as we explore the destiny of the Titanic's legacy in the 21st century. The revival of the Titanic. For some individuals, the idea of constructing a replica of the Titanic and sending it into the open seas amidst a flurry of publicity might seem like the epitome of hubris, a daring challenge to tempt fate. However, in 2012, Clive Palmer, the outspoken Australian billionaire who invested millions of dollars from his personal fortune into the Titanic Two project, envisioned a grander future beyond a single replica. In his perspective, the years ahead would have witnessed an entire fleet of Titanics navigating the waters. Each of these would have recreated the experience of the ill-fated original ship that met its demise after colliding with an iceberg in the North Atlantic. As the legend goes, the RMS Titanic, constructed by Harland and Wolff in Belfast, struck an iceberg and sank on April 15, 1912, resulting in the tragic loss of over 1,500 passengers and crew. Despite the tragic end, the Titanic endured an unusual afterlife. After all, it became the most famous shipwreck in history. In April 2012, Palmer introduced a new venture named Blue Star Line, a deliberate homage to the original Titanic company, White Star Line. The announcement of Titanic Two took place during a news conference on the 100th anniversary of the original Titanic's doomed maiden journey from Southampton, England, to New York City. At the time of the announcement of Titanic Two, Palmer expressed his hope, stating that after 100 years, people will reflect in time and say that they're building Titanic 4 and Titanic 5 in memory of the people who built Titanic 2. Palmer's aspirations for the Titanic captured global attention as he progressively unveiled more details of his ambitious plan. Titanic 2 was set to be constructed in a Chinese shipyard, a symbolic shift from the original's origins in Belfast's docks, reflecting the evolution of the world. According to Palmer, the decision to build the ship was a straightforward one. His substantial mining interests, which have elevated him to one of the world's wealthiest individuals, already tie him closely to the shipping industry. Explaining the genesis of the idea, he shared that the initiation of this project came from his close relationship with Chinese shipyards. At the time, they were building 4 of his ships and wanted to build passenger ships, so it occurred to him that he should build the Titanic. However, Palmer's plans stirred a blend of astonishment and derision. Notably, he remained unfazed by it. Characterized by his robust frame, Palmer casually dismissed some of the expected criticism surrounding the notion of resurrecting an unsinkable ship, notorious for being doomed. In response to potential criticisms, he offered a perspective seasoned with humor and self-assurance. He elaborated on how there are more than 6 billion people today in the world, and if you worry about someone criticizing you on your every move, then it would become impossible to get out of bed. The world is still waiting to see Titanic 2. Apart from the criticism, upon closer inspection, it becomes evident that Palmer, who is the son of Australian silent movie star George Palmer, holds a deep affection not just for the historical Titanic, but equally for James Cameron's cinematic rendition. Instead of diving into the grim details of the Titanic disaster, marked by class-based horrors where the affluent were saved while the less fortunate drowned, Palmer aimed to cast Titanic 2 in the light of a symbol for love and unity. He spoke of it as if Cameron's fictional characters, the ill-fated lovers Rose and Jack, were tangible figures. According to Palmer, Titanic 2 is a wonderful opportunity for everyone around the world to come together with an idea, and that idea is nothing but understanding and love. He also believes that this creation puts emphasis on the things that everyone has in common. Even if Palmer's fascination leans more towards the cinematic portrayal of Titanic than its historical reality, it doesn't diminish the potential success of his venture. The allure of Titanic Two was already apparent when the idea was announced. Over 40,000 people expressed interest in its maiden voyage, while some even offered up to $1 million for a first-class cabin. Much like Cameron's experience, Palmer realized that people are drawn to the image of the Titanic, and within that image lies a significant business opportunity. Palmer candidly acknowledged that his interest is derived from ours, and everyone in the world is interested in the Titanic. And he was right, since the Chinese also started a parallel project to eternalize Titanic's memory. This means Titanic 2 is happening. Construction Update 2023 is ready to be rolled out. The Romanticia. With the deep-rooted cultural influence of the Titanic, the Chinese couldn't help themselves to recreate a once-in-a-lifetime replica of the unsinkable Titanic. The Chinese version of the unsinkable ship came along with a price tag of 1 billion yuan, which is equivalent to 101 million pounds. Slated to be built at least 930 miles away from the nearest ocean in the central province of Sichuan, it was anticipated that this replica would have an opening date in 2016. The CEO of Seven-Star Energy Investment Group, Su Xiaojun, who decided to finance this mega project, put forward the idea that Asia was in dire need of its own Titanic museum. According to his beliefs, it is worth spreading the spirit of the Titanic globally. He also believes that the universal love and sense of responsibility that was displayed during the Titanic's tragic shipwreck represented the spiritual richness of human civilization. After all, he was not just creating a replica of the unsinkable ship, but a theme park to represent all the cultural influence wielded by the Titanic. The project aspired to be more than a mere museum replicating the original ship in the 1997 James Cameron movie. In fact, it was planned to craft a simulation that would immerse a couple of hundred people at a time in a virtual environment of a shipwreck. In the museum, they would have experienced what it feels like to actually experience a shipwreck on the Titanic. In a press conference after announcing the creation of the theme park, Su also detailed that when the ship actually collided with the iceberg, it tumbled and shocked, and he aspired to allow people to experience water entering the hull using auditory and visual effects. Not just this, Su also wanted people to think and feel that they were about to drown and that they must escape with their life. Other than Su's passion for bringing this project to life, Bernard Hill, who was a cast member of James Cameron's Titanic and played Captain Edward Smith, flew all the way to Hong Kong to support the Chinese replica. He also addressed the concerns of insensitivity towards the tragedy and gave his consent to move forward with the theme park. Adding on to this, Hill also credited the Chinese team for handling the project with sensitivity and delicacy. The Romanticia 7-star International Cultural Tourism Resort also planned to boast features like a man-made beach, a 6D cinema, and replicas of a Venetian church and European castles. The ambitious plan involved placing a full-size replica of the Titanic in a reservoir within the River Qi, complete with a simulation of the infamous iceberg. The projected cost for this non-working replica hovered around $125 million. In November 2016, the Sichuan 7 Energy Investment Group held a keel-laying ceremony to mark the commencement of what was touted as an 11-month project. However, due to an unfortunate turn of events, the team missed the 2017 completion deadline, and by February 2019, construction was still visibly ongoing, as numerous videos showed an obviously unfinished ship. Come August 2021, reports surfaced that the project had been abandoned. The Sichuan 7 Energy reported total assets of around $682 million USD, signaling a shift towards building a world-class modern energy service. In October 2021, the chairman of the Qixing Energy Investment Group mentioned that the project needed another year, though he expressed hesitation, foreseeing potential challenges. The Tourism Bureau of Sichuan Province had previously informed Surging News 8 months earlier that the project was operating normally and would be completed in 2022. Su emphasized their commitment to authenticity, stating they had collected original blueprints for years to create a faithful replica of the Titanic within the romantic Mediterranean resort. By 2020, the hull was reportedly 80% completed, but funds became a challenge as construction progressed. Su Xiaojun even joked about needing a money printing machine, revealing that they had enough funds to finish only the hull, and additional funds would be required for the project's completion. Currently, the construction of the Chinese Romandicia replica Titanic has come to a halt, with little to no progress in the past few years. It's crucial to note that this was never intended to be a functional ship, but rather a full-sized theme park attraction in China. Originally set for completion in 2017, the project faced financial setbacks, leading to a slowdown. In 2018, progress resumed, but this time with volunteers instead of paid workers. Much like the elusive Titanic Two project, obtaining updated information about Romandicia proves to be a challenge. However, it's believed that the decks were nearly finished, suggesting that constructing the superstructure would be the next phase. The lingering questions remain. When will it be completed? Will it ever be completed? Different laws, identical ship. Even though Titanic Two is supposed to be a tribute to the grandiosity of the original Titanic, it is bound to operate under updated laws and regulations in order to not repeat the same tragedy. As it is common knowledge, the tragic tale of the Titanic sinking was marked by a glaring shortage of lifeboats. This shortage was a defining factor that led to the loss of approximately 1,495 lives out of the 2,200 aboard. Despite the ship having the capacity for a total of 64 lifeboats, it only carried 20. Shockingly, this still could have saved about a third of those on board, roughly 1,178 people, if the women and children first principle hadn't been strictly enforced. What adds to the shock is that the Titanic had 4 more lifeboats than the legal requirement at the time. During that era, the mandated number of lifeboats on a liner was determined by the ship's gross tonnage, not the number of passengers it could carry. According to the UK's Board of Trade regulations, British ships exceeding 10,000 tons were only obligated to carry a minimum of 16 lifeboats. For context, the Titanic had a gross tonnage of 46,328 and could displace between 52,000 and 66,000 tons of water. Following the tragic incident, limitation of liability hearings took place in both the United States and the UK, leading to recommendations that ships should carry enough lifeboats for all passengers and crew members. The subsequent creation of the first International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea Treaty in 1914 established this as an international standard. This highlighted the enduring impact of the Titanic disaster on maritime safety regulations. Another critical element in the Titanic tragedy was the lack of radio signal regulation at the time. When the ship struck an iceberg at 11:40 p.m. on April 14, 1912, Chief Telegraphist Jack Phillips sent a CQD Morse code distress call, the standard signal used by Marconi operators. Later, he switched to SOS, a relatively new distress signal. Although the CQD call reached a Newfoundland telegraph station, the radio waves were inundated with noise from amateur operators on the U.S. East Coast and personal telegrams meant for passengers. Adding to the chaos, the wireless radio operator of the SS Californian, a merchant vessel just 10 miles away, was asleep, leaving the Titanic's urgent calls unanswered. The Radio Act of 1912 brought significant changes to passenger safety at sea. This U.S. law imposed restrictions on long-wave frequencies, mandated licensing for radio operators, and officially adopted SOS as the international distress signal, as of the International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea Treaty. In 1914, ships were required to have a wireless radio operator on duty at all times, and distress signals gained priority over the airwaves. The Communications Act of 1934 further solidified these measures by establishing a separate radio frequency for distress signals. These regulatory shifts aimed to prevent a recurrence of communication failures that played a role in the Titanic disaster. The sinking of the Titanic sparked the inaugural International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea in London in 1913. The resulting International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea Treaty, officially implemented on January 20, 1914, underwent subsequent amendments in coming years. This comprehensive maritime legislation introduced important regulations, including the requirement for 24-hour radio watches, stipulations on the number of lifeboats on ships, and mandatory drills for crew members on lifeboat procedures. One noteworthy outcome of the International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea Treaty was the establishment of the International Ice Patrol. This patrol is tasked with locating and warning ships about hazardous icebergs in the North Atlantic, particularly around the Grand Banks off Newfoundland. This patrol, still operational today, monitors around 1,000 icebergs annually, and since its inception, no lives have been lost within its surveillance area due to iceberg collisions. Despite the Titanic being perceived as unsinkable, it had a design that proved otherwise. Equipped with a double bottom and 16 watertight compartments featuring electrically controlled watertight doors, the ship seemed secure. However, the walls of these bulkheads were only a few feet above sea level, which allowed water to spill over easily and caused the ship to founder. In the aftermath, fundamental design changes were implemented. The White Star Line, Titanic's owner, modified sister ships RMS Olympic and RMS Britannic to extend the double bottoms above the waterline and created double hulls. This adjustment aimed to reduce the risk of water pouring into watertight compartments if the hull was punctured. Additionally, bulkheads were raised higher above the waterline in subsequent ship designs to ensure each compartment was truly watertight. Even with these laws, how is Titanic Two different from the original? A modern and safer Titanic. The upcoming vessel is designed to closely mirror the appearance of the original ship. Its silhouette, including 4 elegantly backward-leaning funnels, remains almost identical, and its dimensions replicate those of the original. Internally, much of the original ship, from the Turkish baths to a grand staircase, has been faithfully replicated, while incorporating new features. The original Titanic's passengers were split into 3 classes: first, second, and third. Accommodations and social status were greatly impacted by which class you booked, and of course the ability to pay for it. In the movie Titanic, Jack wins just enough to afford a third-class ticket, indicating his low social status, as opposed to Rose. The Titanic Two aims for authenticity in its accommodations as well. Third-class passengers can expect smaller rooms at more affordable prices, while first-class passengers will enjoy luxurious surroundings at a higher cost. Nonetheless, another creative option being considered is a special ticket that allows passengers to live in all 3 class types. This will provide a first-hand experience of the diverse conditions and privileges associated with each class. Maintaining nearly identical specifications to the original Titanic, the Titanic Two is designed to host around 2,400 passengers, closely matching the number aboard the original. The ship will also boast accommodations for 900 crew members and house 835 cabins. The online revealed dimensions stand at 833 feet in length and 175 feet in height, featuring 10 decks. With this, design plans promise replicas of the Titanic's iconic restaurants and dining areas. You can expect the famous Parisian cafe from the Titanic film to also make a comeback. However, Titanic Two will also introduce a novel addition called the safety deck. Yes, this was a feature absent in the original ship. Positioned between decks C and D, its primary function will be to house modern enclosed lifeboats, which address a critical safety aspect. The boat deck above will showcase replicas of the original lifeboats, serving an aesthetic purpose only. Creating space for the safety deck involved lowering decks D and below by 2.8 meters, raising the superstructure by 1.3 meters, and consequently removing the orlop deck. This deck primarily housed boilers. What this modification does is that it eliminates the need for a traditional lookout, a practice now superseded by modern technology. In addition to preserving the original staircases, the design also includes new escape staircases into the boiler exhaust uptakes. Adding a touch of entertainment and convenience, the safety deck will house a casino, hospital, theater, and a few shops. The theater, designed as a show lounge due to the single-height deck, is anticipated to seat around 400 passengers. Titanic Two will depart from the trend of megaships which cater to thousands, making the voyage a more intimate experience. Notably, while the Titanic didn't feature a casino, as it wasn't a British tradition at the time, modern cruise ships find casinos to be one of the most lucrative public spaces. While the Titanic Two will carefully replicate the original in terms of aesthetics, there are a lot of changes that lie beneath the surface. We're talking particularly in terms of engine power. Departing from the coal-fired boilers and steam engines of the past, the replica will feature a state-of-the-art diesel-electric propulsion system and comprise 4 diesel generating sets. These systems will power 3 azimuth thrusters and 2 bow thrusters, which will be positioned laterally. Although a replica rudder is included for visual authenticity, it serves no functional maritime purpose. The area formerly occupied by steam engines and coal-fired boiler rooms in the original Titanic will be repurposed in the Titanic Two to accommodate crew quarters and important ship systems. Furthermore, external variations from the original design include the addition of a bulbous bow, which is a moderate-sized feature to enhance fuel efficiency. In a nod to modernity, observation decks within the iconic funnels will be introduced, and they will feature tinted window coverings that blend seamlessly with the funnel's color. The overall appearance strives for utmost fidelity to the original, but in a departure from the original Titanic, the replica omits the shear or camber, a distinctive upward curve in the ship's hull. While a shear was considered a cosmetic enhancement in the era, contributing to the ship's graceful appearance, its exclusion in the Titanic Two simplifies construction. It also reduces complexity and cost. Adding to all these designs, Palmer has decided to add an upward rake to Deck C at both the bow and stem. This will add a superficial yet visually striking appearance, and to achieve this effect, an artificial wedge-shaped gap between Decks C and D will be introduced. Thanks to modern maritime technology, the Titanic Two will have stabilizers to mitigate rolling during turbulent weather. Employing active tank systems, these stabilizers use accelerometers to detect rolling motions. Signals from the roll-sensing device are then transmitted to a variable pitch pump, regulating liquid flow between tanks to counteract and minimize the rolling of each wave individually. Now, for a more interesting feature, the replica will have anti-iceberg upgrades incorporated in a welded hull. This performs a simple function of durability. The ship's slightly increased width contributes to improved stability. Coupled with advanced navigation equipment, the likelihood of encountering unexpected obstacles is significantly reduced. Echoing the luxuries of the past, the replica will also house a pool reminiscent of the original, which will be complete with porthole windows. Although relatively small given the passenger capacity, access to the pool will differ among passenger classes. Plus, just like its original, the Titanic Two will maintain a gym for first-class passengers. This fitness facility will have electric camel and horse apparatus, cycling machines, and rowing machines. It's time for today's subscribers pick. Titanic Two is happening. Construction Update 2023 is here, and everyone around the globe is excited to spot the magnificent ship set sail in the sea. In fact, some of the people are so eager to see this ship fully constructed that they sit down every day with binoculars to do a ship check. And finally, one of our subscribers has spotted an eerily similar-looking cruise ship. He watched it emerge from the middle of the ocean, and when he glanced at it, it had the same hull and colors as the original Titanic. But according to the reports, Titanic Two is still under construction. Now, the subscriber is befuddled by this snapshot he took. He's worried that he might have seen something he wasn't supposed to. Do you think Palmer is keeping the finished product under wraps? Is this really the Titanic Two? Or has someone beaten Palmer to create the replica? What do you think? Help this subscriber out here by commenting below. A more detailed design. With all the amenities discussed, the design plans of this replica have some more leisure activities planned. As it looks like, passengers aboard the Titanic Two can indulge in a game of squash or racquetball, although this extra amenity comes at an additional cost. Back in 1912, an hour on the original court required a separate fee of 2 shillings or 50 cents, equivalent to approximately $13 in today's value. Other than this, first-class male passengers of the original Titanic enjoyed exclusive access to a private smoke room. It is believed that Titanic Two will faithfully recreate this space, but the specificities of this room remain unclear. A fun fact about this room is that Thomas Andrews, the original ship's designer, was reportedly last seen in the smoke room, and if you have seen the Titanic, this was a detail replicated in the movie Titanic. The replica will also include a mimicry of the original Titanic bridge for aesthetic purposes. Striving for authenticity, the Titanic II's interior designs and decorations closely mirror the original ship. Tillberg Design of Sweden was commissioned to produce models replicating the initial interiors with veneers replacing wooden paneling to comply with current fire regulations. While safety considerations make it compulsory to introduce material adjustments, Titanic II's commitment to capturing the true essence of the original vessel will make sure the passengers are captivated by its replicated beauty. After all, who wouldn't appreciate a touch of nostalgia with a modern twist? In addition to this modern twist, the replica is also set to make maritime history by side, launching from a 200-meter slipway, which is a remarkable feat that demands a ton of expansion of the shipyard facilities. Side launching uses an oiled slipway extending into the water, and it represents one of the most widely used ship launching systems. There are 2 side launching methods. One involves the ship's own weight sliding into the water, and the second makes sure both the slipway and the ship move into the water together, with the ship's buoyancy and stabilizers keeping the ship stable. While Titanic Two offers the luxury of air conditioning, a perk the original passengers could only dream of, certain modern amenities are deliberately omitted to preserve the romance of a bygone era. Television and internet access will be absent, but for communication needs, a Marconi room will be available. To keep things interesting, passengers will find early 20th century style clothing and undergarments in their cabin so they can immerse themselves in the Titanic experience. Maintaining the original's maximum speed of 24 knots, the Titanic Two has enhancements such as a larger rudder and a modern diesel engine, which obviously replaced the steam boilers. With 1 knot equivalent to approximately 1.15 mph, these improvements bring the ship's maximum speed to around 27 to 28 mph. It is important to note that the officially recognized world water speed record stands at an impressive 275 knots, equivalent to about 318 mph. Talking about speed, the replica will feature propellers housed in azipods or pods capable of steering along both vertical and azimuthal axes. In contrast, the original Titanic was equipped with 3 propellers. The decision for 3 propellers was strategic, as having only 2 wouldn't effectively transmit power at the engine's nominal speed. The centerline propeller, driven by a Parsons low-pressure turbine, utilized the low-pressure steam after passing through the reciprocating engines that powered the 2 outboard propellers. The outer propellers of the original Titanic had 3 blades each, while the centerline propeller featured 4 blades. This design aimed to thermodynamically and hydrodynamically combine the 2 types of propulsion engines using 3- and 4-bladed propellers. All of these details do sound enticing, and with design plans already, people are curious to know the construction update of Titanic Two. The fate of Titanic Two. Initially, Palmer anticipated setting sail in 2016, but the construction, intended to commence in China in late 2013, faced obstacles due to financial disputes. The construction was never initiated. Years later, design work and wave testing on a model of the ocean liner reportedly began in the fall of 2018. Expressing the collective dreams of millions to sail on the iconic vessel, Palmer emphasized that Titanic Two would transform these aspirations into reality. The decision to resume work on the project was triggered by a recent court ruling compelling CITIC to pay millions in royalties for an iron ore project, despite ongoing legal disputes. He revealed that Blue Star Line also intends to establish a European headquarters, likely in Paris, to propel the Titanic Two into the open seas. To lead the project, Palmer appointed his nephew, Clive Palmer, as the European director. Despite Palmer's previous role as the managing director of Queensland Nickel, another of Palmer's businesses that collapsed in 2016, Palmer sees him as the ideal candidate to deliver a world-class experience with Titanic Two. The new ship is slated to follow the same route as the Titanic, carrying passengers across the Atlantic from Southampton, England, to New York City. Some reports cite its inaugural sailing from Dubai to Southampton and then to the Big Apple, after which it will regularly run the Titanic's original itinerary. Despite initial skepticism, Palmer is determined to turn the dream of Titanic Two into a captivating reality. However, the fate of Titanic Two still hangs in balance due to financial and political scandals. Will this magnificent ship ever touch the sea for its first sail? We sure hope so. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.